Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Let me first of all say, keep safe, take care of the family, and I wish you all the security in this very difficult time. Let me start with some macro thoughts. As I wrote before, I think in February, what's certain is that the whole global economy has been hit by an insidious, literally invisible circuit breaker. Policymakers still somehow believe in their linear minds that more free money, more rate cuts will resuscitate the patient, which is like a patient etherized upon a table. A V-shaped recovery now, of course, is long forgotten, but at that time I wrote and said it is a fantasy, which it is. Sun chartist, come to think of it, no one expected negative money market rates, then the 10-year, then the entire yield curve, then oil. I also know, as I said on the 6th of April, we're about to enter the Great Depression. The virus is not correlated to endogenous market dynamics, but is an exogenous uncertainty that remains unresolved till now. US hotel RevPAR March data lowest on record, minus 52%, but these sorts of data points can be seen across a whole universe of data points. Home thoughts, sunset by the shores of Lake Turkana, Jambo magazine, that's close to where life began. This is a superherd of elephants in the Tsavo from long, long ago by Mr. Beard via Ringo, Nairobi. Quite an extraordinary photograph, and as a very young boy I remember coming in the car to Nairobi and more than 500 elephants crossing the road. A polar bear rolls down on the sea ice in Svalbard, that's from Giant Sharma. Negative rates, mortgage companies pay us to live in our homes. Negative oil, gas stations pay us to fill up. The Fed will save them all. Who needs a job anyways? The always witty Northman trader. That took me back to the way we live now. You felt the land taking you back to what was there 100 years ago, to what had been there always, via Snaipaul, a bend in the river. And Don DeLillo, everything is barely weeks, everything is days, we have minutes to live. David Collum, the COVID virus stuck a nuke up the ass of a pig, highly leveraged financial system, and now the Fed thinks some big wad of cash will put it back together. Dudes, it's a Tarantino finale. It ain't going to be faithful to historical precedent, but there will be blood and guts. And as I said, there is something karmic in this COVID-19. It's invisible, but it has already defeated the most expensive aircraft carriers, whose defeat it seems to have a penchant for, lurks everywhere and in silence, has closed down Mecca, St. Peter's Square, the Vatican, and any other religious gathering you care to mention. Jesus is my vaccine is one of the more colorful messages here. That's Miguel Marquez. And I take you back to an intelligence article. The saliva of COVID-19 patients can harbor 500 billion virus particles per teaspoon, and a cough aerosolizes it into a diffuse mist. This is from Expresso. En el cementerio para los casos de COVID-19 ya han sido sepultados 132 personas. And that took me back to the zeitgeist of a time as its defining spirit or its mood, and the zeitgeist of 2020 is simply indescribable. It certainly does feel like a decade of semiotic arousal when everything it seemed was a sign, a harbinger of some future radical disjuncture or cataclysmic upheaval. And on that note, I went back to the hollow men. Mr. Kurtz, he dead. We are the hollow men. We are the stuffed men. Leaning together, headpiece filled with straw, alas, our dried voices when we whisper together are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass or rat's feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. Between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom, for thine is life, for thine is this is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Political reflections, total confirmed cases, 2,565,059. I think that's massively undercounted. Total deaths, 177,496. That's the latest data point from Johns Hopkins. Many thousands more people have died in Europe this year compared with a normal year. Deaths officially attributed to COVID-19 account for just a fraction of the increase, suggesting many more died from the virus than have been counted. William Hague has written in the Telegraph, coronavirus has accelerated 8 megatrends that will transform everything. Our daily experience of the COVID-19 crisis is that it slows down our lives. Jobs are on hold, holidays not booked, and travel unthinkable. Age of quarantine is what I called it. We have more leisure time, whether we like it or not, for people not on the front line of the NHS or essential supplies. The lockdown is a slowdown, he says. Huge decisions and great controversies that might only have come to a head over the next couple of decades are suddenly upon us. We are about to experience the next 20 years in 12 months, and we need to get ready for it. Or think about the drift to great power rivalry between America and China, already gathering pace in recent years. COVID-19 threatens to speed that up, with both countries trying to shift blame onto the other. The Pacific century is going to arrive faster than anyone thought. It is not only in the West that we experience a sudden fast forwarding of what is to come. Countries dependent on oil production already faced forecasts that petroleum demand would peak and fall before 2030. Today they're receiving the sharpest possible demonstration of what that will mean as oil prices plunge far below the point at which any of them balance their budgets. And I call that regime implosion, which is now predicted and predictable. But be in no doubt, as the long days at home seem to pass ever so slowly, in its effect on society's politics and the distribution of power in the world, COVID-19 is on track to be the great accelerator. He posted the Eurozone economy endured its worst downturn on record in March, and that's just a series, isn't it, of data points. Wow, another amazing Biden ad. They've been rather good, spot on, please watch and share. John Cooper tweets. As I said in a previous article quoting Jenna Friedman, a reality TV star botched the response to a global pandemic, and now we're all imprisoned in our homes and forced to watch him daily. I added, to watch the daily briefing is to understand that the control machine has a novice, a hubristic Narcissus, in charge of the console. 24th of February, I was talking about how the viral moment had arrived. YouTube CEO Suzanne Wojcicki says anything that goes against the WHO is a violation of YouTube policies. Balagius, YouTube should not be censoring videos that dispute WHO. That's stating the obvious, because they're essentially carrying water for Xi Jinping and his algorithmic control. They now turn to rule over the people by means of what could be dubbed big data totalitarianism and WeChat terror, and now YouTube terror. You will all be no better than fields of garlic chives, giving yourselves up to being harvested by the blade of power, time and time again. What is thriving, however, is all that ridiculous red culture and the nauseating adulation that the system heaps on itself via shameless pro-party hacks who chirrup hosannas at every turn. And as I wrote before, non-linear and exponential virus represents the greatest risk to a control machine. 1st of March, when I was writing about the origins of the COVID-19, I quoted Don DeLillo, "There's always more to it. This is what history consists of. It is the sum total of the things they aren't telling us." The Wuhan Institution of Virology, the Gates Foundation, and the World Health Organization have all been hacked, and thousands of emails, passwords, and documents have been leaked online. And we're going to discover that they are indeed an unholy trinity. What are the odds that a SARS-like coronavirus with overlapping genetics from HIV mutated and crossed over into humans? Asked Scott Burke a few weeks ago. Next door to a laboratory which had been enhancing coronavirus with HIV for over a decade, and conversely, what are the odds it leaked out of the laboratory? 1st March, if they can get you asking the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about the answers, Thomas Pynchon. William Burroughs, a paranoid, is someone who knows a little of what's going on. And 16th of February, I was writing about how viruses exhibit non-linear and exponential characteristics. And what I'm sure about is there are several waves, and we're in the first wave. WHO shut it down, decoupled from the CCP Adam Scrabble. Turning to the markets, the dollar index is at 100.075, well underpinned because of the global dollar shortage. Euro dollar is last at 108.69. Netflix after hours $434.40. They added 15.8 million subscribers, more than double the 7.2 million that were expected. Now has 182 million subscribers worldwide. 23rd of September last year, I was writing about streaming dreams, non-linearity, and Netflix. I was referencing an article in 2012, Annals of Technology Streaming Dreams by John Seabrook. People went from broad to narrow, and we think they'll continue to go that way, spend more and more time in the niches, because now the distribution landscape allows for more narrowness. I said then in September last year, Netflix is not a US business, but is a global business, and that the majority of analysts are in the US, and in my opinion, these same analysts have an international blind spot. And on that date, I put out a conviction buy on Netflix at Friday's closing price of $270.75. Gold to reach $3,000, 50% above its record, Bank of America says in a report the Fed can't print gold. Economic output contracts sharply, fiscal outlays surge, central bank balance sheets double, fiat currencies could come under pressure. Investors will aim for gold. Record is 1,921.17, set in September 2011. I couldn't agree with them more, as you know. Beyond traditional gold supply and demand fundamentals, financial repression is back on an extraordinary scale, the report said. Have a look at this video from Gold Telegraph. Today, the streets of Venezuela are covered with cash. This is what happens when hyperinflation destroys the value of money. It becomes worthless. Scott Burke, The Print Shop. 24th of February, I said the viral moment has arrived. At this point, I would venture, I said then, gold is correlated to the coronavirus, which is set to turn parabolic and is already non-linear and exponential. 22nd of March, I reiterated my conviction. I still believe gold will soon turn viral to the upside. I'm looking for $2,000 plus. Currently, we're at $16.91. There goes oil again. Brent crude down 14% to near $16.50. David Inglis dropped to the lowest intraday price since November 2001. Shockwaves will be felt around the world. It's going to be a rough summer. Youssef TV. I'm glad that I put out a conviction trade. I said if storage is full now, then selling June WTI at more than $20 is a no-brainer, because nothing changes in 4 weeks or even 8 weeks, and that turned out to be correct. On a serious note, there is a risk of sovereign defaults from nations that rely heavily on oil exports. Here's 2018 data for heavily exposed countries. This is via Nick Carter. I said we're now entering the twilight zone for a lot of oil producers. On the 6th of April, I said, what I do know now is this: regime implosion is coming to the oil producers. And then Trump was gaming the price. I said he can game the price a little more, sure, but it's a pointless exercise. Demand is cratered, and a return to a hyper-connected 100 million barrels per day world is not going to happen for the foreseeable future. I said Putin will survive because he prepared for this moment. Others are as good as terminated. Good morning, Houston. Here's our front page today, a pretty stunning image. I also added that, we're moving from a world of hyper-connectedness to a world of quarantine. A complete quarantine is the only way to vaccine this 21st century world of ours. And that was on the 22nd of March. I said the price of crude oil is perfectly correlated to the COVID-19 sudden stop. Kapuściński, oil creates the illusion of a completely changed life. No more. Life without work, life for free. Oil is a resource that anesthetizes thought, blurs vision, corrupts, kindles extraordinary emotions and hopes, since oil is above all a great temptation. It is the temptation of ease, wealth, strength, fortune, power. It is a filthy, foul-smelling liquid that squirts obligingly up into the air and falls back to earth as a rustling shower of money. It isn't that, no more. That was Shah of Shahs. It's more Hunter S. Thompson, The Edge. There is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where the edge is, and these are the oil producers, are the ones who have gone over. Main story from Iran's Kayhan newspaper has this headline: they wanted to cut Iran's oil export to zero, but the price of US crude is sub-zero. And the point there is, in fact, having endured all this sanction warfare, Iran and Venezuela, they're counterintuitively anti-fragile, according to Taleb's criteria. Oil demand hit, Trafigura said, we have no hope of production cuts matching the demand destruction. Trump has shot his shot, as I tweeted that day when he bumped up the price. I said this is not his tariff war algo gig. The basis is out of whack because of storage. It is like being stuck in traffic in a Bentley and no possibility of leaving it, so you need to pay someone to take it from you. Coming to sub-Saharan Africa, cases are 24,686, and I think underestimated by a factor of 50 to 100. Deaths, 1,191. 2nd of March, I was writing about Africa specifically. I said the first issue is whether the coronavirus will infect the continent, because at that time there were some bright-eyed and bushy-tailed thoughts that it wouldn't. We know that the coronavirus is exponential, non-linear, and multiplicative. And I was quoting epsilon theory: exponential disease propagation looks like this in the real world. Nothing, 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 then cluster, 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 then boom. We're in this cluster, cluster, cluster stage. It would not be an exaggeration to say we're staring into the abyss of a zombie apocalypse here in Africa. Growth in sub-Saharan Africa in 2020 is projected at minus 1.6%. We've got to downgrade that further now. The lowest level on record. WHO coronavirus cases in Africa could shoot up from thousands now to 10 million within 3 to 6 months, according to very provisional modeling. There's a link for the WHO Africa region data if you're interested. As I said previously, we're looking in the rearview mirror. Our testing is hardly, meaningful. In Africa, confirmed daily cases are increasing. This is a trend from REMI GMI. Balance sheets, as I said on the 2nd of March, are maxed out. Debt, virus, and locusts create a perfect storm for Africa, I wrote in the Africa report. 14th of October last year, I was quoting Ozymandias, referencing the continent, saying, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." 9th of December, I said, time to big up the dosage of Quaaludes. In my recent article, I was saying China has an option to buy in sub-Saharan African assets at fire sale prices. And I was describing how the pressure point of countries dependent on Africa had reversed. This was China's plan all along, to run up the debt of these developing countries, and when they couldn't pay them back, China would take their assets. We warned them this would happen, Nikki Haley. And that's where we are, the Hambantota moment. Every day the desert locust situation is unique. This swarm has just been reported in Samburu. It covers a length of 10 kilometers. That's from FAO. Ramaphosa pledges COVID rescue package worth 10% of GDP, $26.33 billion. They're going to take $4.2 billion in emergency funding from the IMF. South African oil shares down 16.56% year to date. Rand is at 19.029, going to 20. Egyptian pound 15.75. EGX 30 down 29.27% year to date. Nigeria's oil revenue is cratering, I wrote on the 5th of March, and a currency devaluation is now predicted and predictable. And we've now learnt Nigerian naira forwards hit a record high after oil price tumble. Dollar hit a record high against the Nigerian naira in non-deliverable forwards markets on Tuesday. 1-year naira non-deliverable forward stood at 498.5 points. Nigerian all shares down 15.69%. Ghana Stock Exchange down 5.87%. Uganda interview with Brigadier Mawa Kayembe, the Tanzanian field commander, after the taking of Jinja all those years ago. NCBA Bank pulls final dividend for 2019 due to coronavirus here in Kenya. The board attributed the change decision to the COVID-19 pandemic's devastating effects to the world and the Kenyan economy. They're doing a 1 for 10 bonus. Very cheap on a price-earnings ratio, but people will be unhappy with that. Nairobi all shares down 16.92% year-to-date. NSE 20 is down 24.855% year-to-date. Thank you for listening.